Ah, the early 20th century. The time of film, jazz, baseball, flappers, and oh yeah, there's also that death thing. To live in this time period, you had to be probably really unlucky. I mean, the name kinda speaks for itself. It's the age of anxiety. Why did they call it that? Well, you tell me. So the question is, what went through the minds of people during this time? Obviously nobody was happy with what was going on, or at the very least they were a little bit on edge. I mean, that's why they call it the age of anxiety, right? But how do we observe the minds of people living in this short, though terrible part of history? Well, Miss Brown gave us a list of things. I mean, I'll show you how, sir. So first you got your art. A lot of art at this time was in response to the war. Two notable artists were Picasso and Dali. One painting by Dali called Elephants, which shows two elephants with abnormally large legs and large stone obelisks floating on their backs. The background is very simple. So what does this mean? Well, elephants around the world were a symbol of power, strength, and dominance. Giving them long bony legs makes a contradiction, like something so seemingly powerful standing on such a fragile foundation. Sound familiar? Making the elephants look this way was probably Dali's way of showing how he looked at the empires around him. All these seemingly powerful and strong countries thinking they're better than each other. They stand on fragile foundations. Whether that means the land they sit on is fragile from the war, or if it means the ways of nationalistic thinking are broken and wrong, or if they stand on a broken people who are still being affected by the war. It really works any way you look at it. But what about the large obelisks? Obelisks, I probably butchered that name. They probably represent the idea of the heavy burden put on society in this time period. He just thought was really meaningless, and they're all just kind of floating through space, like the rocks. Another painting was Picasso's Guernica. The art shows a very distorted version of people in agony. Some of the notable parts of it are a gored horse and a bull in flames. The painting is regarded as one of the most moving anti-war paintings of all time. It was made as a response to a bombing by Nazi and Italian warplanes in a village called Guernica in northern Spain. I also probably butchered that name too.
You don't say!
On to the next thing. Psychology. The interest in human behavior has been with us since the man first started walking the earth. But what did it do for people in the age of anxiety? Two of the biggest players in this game were Sigmund Freud and Carl Gustav Jung. The two actually worked together for a brief time until Jung pretty much dissed Freud by saying that his work was wrong. But we're not talking about that. Sigmund Freud, I'm probably butchering his name as well,
You serious?
was thought to be a father of psychoanalysis and believed that most of the human personality was subconscious. The other psychologist, Carl Jung, is thought to be the father of analytical psychology. He thought that personality was based on archetypes. He's the guy that came up with the concept of introversion and extroversion, you know? But why do people like this stuff? Well, it could have been for a many number of reasons. For one, shell shock kicked it all off because everybody was trying to figure that out. The tension between nations at the time made people want to seek out a better understanding of themselves and escape from anxiety. Or maybe it was because everyone was affected by World War I and they wanted to find out why things happened the way they did. Alright. Next. After 4 long years of war, you'd think you'd have some time off of all this death and destruction thing, right? Everyone went home and was like, this peace thing is gonna be great. But then the universe shows up out of nowhere and is like, you know what? I think we need even more death. And everyone else said, no, you can't do that, man. And the universe was like, watch me, bro. And then everyone got the Spanish flu. It was so bad, in fact, around 50 million people died from it. 25% of the US was infected. People had to wear masks. Places like schools were converted into makeshift hospitals. There was a shortage in doctors because a lot of them died in World War I or because they had gotten sick themselves. It's almost like an apocalypse. And to think people were stocking up on canned food a couple of years ago because of Ebola. People were really freaking out because of this. But that's okay because it all stopped after a while. Next! Art Deco was a style of architecture that became popular in the 1920s and 1930s. The complex design started in France just before World War I, but after it exploded into popularity. People saw it as a representation of progress of technology. It was also the style of architecture that was the first to be picked up around the world all at the same time. Well, that was short. So, World War I is over, and now we have the world's first group of edgy people, otherwise known as the Lost Generation. Don't mistake the term to mean that they were all dead. No, how dare you use logical reasoning. It did mean this to some people, but to most it was the survivors of the Great War. Their heads were pretty messed up from all the fighting, and they could never really go back to society after the war. The name of the group of people was coined by the author Gertrude Stein, who'd witnessed a garage owner call his employee a lost generation because he was working so slowly and without meaning. Dadaism. Dadaism was an artistic movement that began in Zurich, Switzerland, in reaction to World War I. The people in this movement believed nationalism led to the war, and they wanted to express their views on it through very grotesque paintings. Dali was actually a part of this movement. The fascist corporate economy. It's 1915, and this guy named Mussolini is rising in power in Italy, and has this cool new fad called fascism he wants everybody to try out. 1922 rolls around, and now Mussolini is the head of Italy. But what is fascism? Well, fascism is basically extreme nationalism, meaning everyone's loyalty is to the state, and they must do everything for the state because the state is the only thing that matters. The economy is also subordinate to the state. The economy is there to serve the nation. They also thought the state should be in total control, meaning it's a very totalitarian system. And they also had aggressive foreign policy, meaning they thought that cultural superiority was very important. So the Italians thought that the Italians were better than everybody. Kind of like in Germany with the Aryan race. Yeah, that was not very good.
Conclusion.
The way people thought during the Age of Anxiety can be mostly drawn back to World War I. The things that came after it, like Dadaism, the Lost Generation, and literature coming to the realization that war was not indeed glorious, but awful, make it evident that people were angry about what happened and what was happening. People's worldviews were turned upside down in this time. The world just wasn't the same after the war, and people recognized that. Some of the things created by the Age of Anxiety were good, like the Big Bang Theory and all these individual minds. But there were also a lot of terrible things too, like the rise of Hitler and Nazi Germany. There was even a whole new form of government that literally depended on nationalism. All this would lead to World War II, and it was only World War II that could stop it. Okay, I have no idea how to end this video, so...